With the University of East Anglia, so the sports park there was allowing men into female changing rooms. And just to give you some context on the University of East Anglia, they did an event called the Uni Unlocked, which is an event for Year 10 to get a taste of what student life is all about by staying in student flats with other Year 10s, participating in sports clubs. Well, white Year 10s aren't allowed to attend.
Sorry, did you say white Year 10s?
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Resistance GB podcast. My name's Emma Dunwell and today I'm joined by James Harvey. So would you like to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and from where people might know you?
Thank you for having me on, Emma. So I founded a group in 2021 called Students Against Tyranny. And Students Against Tyranny it started as a social group for young people who were like-minded, so they didn't feel so alone and isolated in their beliefs and opinions. I think you remember during, 2021, there was a lot of societal pressures to get, jabs, whether that be from the government, from their parents, from the media. And so we wanted to found this group as a kind of a social outlet so that young people didn't feel so alone in their beliefs because, we're not alone, right? And that's how it started. And then when, medical students were being forced into getting... They had to get the vaccine in order to go on hospital placements, and they had to get the hospital placement in order to finish their course and qualify, right? So we actually worked with a lot of legal firms on getting out legal letters to all of these students, and that's when we realised that no one was actually fighting for the young people. And while there were some great groups around like Stand in the Park and all these other social movements, and that's great because that's how things started, with the COVID lockdown protests, right? But we wanted to. We realised that no one was actually fighting for the students. When we went to like PGH Law and a lot of these other companies, they were working on getting letters out for employees, right? Employees who were being forced to get vaccinated, being forced to wear masks. We wanted to be the organisation that fought for the students, and so that's when it kind of switched for me, and it transitioned into an activism movement, an activism collective of young people opposed to institutionalised Marxism and the shutdown of free speech in universities.
This podcast is able to happen thanks to NutriHealth 365 vitamins. For information on how vitamin D crucially supports your immune system, click the link below. More on NutriHealth later. So what was your experience like as a student? Was your treatment as a student for your views another reason why you wanted to start the group?
So I actually, 2021 when I founded Students Against Tyranny was the same year I started attending university. It was also the same year I started working for Voice of Wales, Unity News Network, and then later transitioned on to Vox Populi and Urban Scoop. So ever since I started as a university student, I've been very politically incorrect. I remember organising a protest on the 7th of May about 2 or 3 years ago, about 15-minute cities in Swansea. And I remember standing there and, we had about 60, 70 counter-protesters calling us, shouting fascist scum off our streets. The majority of them were university students, and I pinpointed a few of them who sat on the same row as me in university. Never once did they say a word to me, and you can actually find this on my channel. He also lived in the same student accommodation, so I went up to him with I got my phone out and I said, "Hey, so what's this about you calling me a fascist? Why did you never say anything to me in person?" And he was like, "I don't want to talk to you, James. I don't want to talk to you, right? These people are cowards." So that's my experience from a kind of dealing with other students. I found a lot of Tommy supporters in there as well in universities. I think there's a lot more right-wing students than people think. A lot more. They're just scared to voice their opinions. And, we found that with Norwich as well, which I'm assuming we'll get into in a bit, with our UEA campaign, right? So that's from a student standpoint, right? But when it comes to, there was I remember in class, in one lesson we were taught about socialism in a very positive manner, right? We were taught about socialism in a positive manner. We were taught about anti-Trump views, and we were taught about climate change. And that we had to, this is in a film. I was studying film and TV. Film and TV.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, so kind of, so when they give you project assignments, they dictate the topics that you focus on, right? And so a lot of the topics would be incredibly woke, and the reason is because 8 and 10 university lecturers are left wing. 8 in 10, right? It's 80%. A very high amount of university lecturers are left wing. And so, I understand a lot of people get, they have a misconception, right? What comes down in university, it doesn't come from a board or the government. It comes from university lecturers who design their curriculum. And that's the problem that we got to focus on and fix and address, right? Because it's not just the government. I mean, there is government intervention, we're seeing in schools at the moment with relationship and sex education and stuff like that. But with regards to universities, a lot of it actually comes from the university lecturers who design their courses.
Yeah.
And they are, because they're incredibly left-wing, that kind of infiltrates its way into our courses quite a lot. And I did film, as I said, I did film and TV, and most of the time we're focusing on woke aspects, woke ideologies. So there was a picture that was brought up on the screen of a Hindu woman standing up to a far right member of the English Defence League. Right. Standing up to, right? Now, what they won't tell you about that picture is that they were actually having a reasonable conversation, right? Debate needs to be had in this country. When people stop talking, wars happen, violence ensues, marriages fall apart. Debate is crucial to a democratic free society. So as I was just explaining, they were having a debate, a discussion, yeah? But then this was photographed by the mainstream media, and they lied, claiming it was a Hindu woman standing up to this far-right member of the EDL. All I did was, because they pulled this picture up in class, all I did was take a 2-second video clip. No one's faces was in it. No one could be heard, yeah? It was just me zooming into the screen, right? And because of that, then I was, they initiated a disciplinary against me, right? And they were claiming that I was in breach of the computer codes or whatever, that I was putting people in danger and all this other stuff. And the worst part was that I was trying to get representation in this meeting. So, this disciplinary meeting. And they told me that I wasn't allowed to bring in Workers of England's union, who was paying to represent me at the time. What I had to do was go to the student union. Now, the student union fund protests against me. They fund protests against Students Against Tyranny, right? So I'm meant to go to the people who despise me, who want to see me fail, to now help me in a case against my university.
And were the university aware of that?
Yeah, they were aware of that. You can claim subject access requests against your university, right? I did that, and I found loads of emails between university faculty about me, trying to find reasons to kick me out. That stems back from when I was arrested. Well, I wasn't really arrested. I was detained for suspicion of committing criminal damage after we went into a Kingdom of Sweets shop, which was a child sweetie store selling sex toys out in the open for children to grab, and we did some civic disobedience, right? Taking them all off the shelves, putting them on the floor, that kind of stuff, right? And they were trying to find reasons to kick me out then, all the way back to protests I had attended in Oxford, which apparently I organised with Tommy Robinson, which is a complete lie, right? They've been trying to find reasons to kick me out for ages. Now, so I was expelled in June of 2023, I believe, right? And what I was expelled for was missing modules. But I have proof and I have evidence, and I've appealed this to the university, right, that they gave me the wrong date for when I was meant to submit work. And so it was submitted about a week too late. Yeah. And because of that, they expelled me from my course. From that then, I have been left £54,000 in debt, with no qualification to show for it, nothing whatsoever. And the worst part was, university, I was there for 2 years, didn't teach me anything. Everything I know about editing, and I do that professionally, everything I know about camera work, lighting, everything, I've taught myself. I watch YouTube tutorials online. I think in school, for example, we learned, in uni, for example, we had one lesson dedicated to Premiere Pro. That was it. That's the only time I ever learned how to edit on that software. Everything else I taught myself. Right? University, and I'm going to say this to the parents watching home, it's a scam. It's a scam. Don't send your child to university. Yeah? You can get the same education that you get at university for free online. I mean, Oxford, for example, Oxford University, they upload a bunch of their lectures to YouTube for free. So why are you paying all this money for a tuition that you could be getting for free? It's a scam. It's a massive, massive scam. And I do wish I never went to university. And the worst part is, right, so so it's 2 years on now, and for the past 2 years I've had debt collectors after me. And the debt collector, so you're not meant to pay back a student loan until you're over 27 grand a year.
Yeah.
But they're claiming there was an overpayment. So what they're saying is I was kicked out in February, not June. Right?
But you have proof that you were kicked out in June.
I've proof. So it took me a while before I was able to get hold of anyone at the university. A lot of times I'd be put on hold. They'd never get back to me. Sometimes they say they'd email me. They never would. There was a lot of scummy tactics in my university, right? And so I eventually I managed to get through to someone, and I found out that the reason I had been they had claimed that I was kicked out in February is because that was the last time I attended a university lecture. For one, that is rubbish. So around the last state that I attended a university lecture, I was actually dealing with the disciplinary that I just talked to you about with the EDL. So I wasn't attending then.
Yeah.
There was also, I called out one of my teachers for pushing man-hating stances in uni. I heard she didn't want to see me, so I didn't attend any of her lessons because she was chatting about me. So around the time, I wasn't really attending university lectures, but that's not that important, right? Because for the first 6 months of the first year I was in university, I spent doing them online anyway because of lockdown, right? So I didn't think attendance was an integral part of my university course, right? I was still submitting work, as I've got proof of. I was still engaging with coursework, engaging with my teachers, engaging with classmates, working on projects at home, right? I just wasn't attending the lessons, and I got proof of that. So we are fighting this. It's only recently that we've been able to actually get through to people, and we are going to be fighting it. I don't care what they do. They are not taking that money from me. They're saying that I owe them £6,000 because of an overpayment at the moment. I'm not paying that money. I will never pay that money because I will never let them win.
So what have been some of your more recent campaigns for Students Against Tyranny?
Well, our most recent campaign would be the Keep Female Species Female one in the University of East Anglia. We've got some other campaigns as well, which I'll get into in just a second, that we've done and we've won. But with the University of East Anglia, so the sports park there was allowing men into female changing rooms.
Is this before or after the court ruling?
This is before the court ruling.
Right, so they weren't continuing to let them in after?
No, this has been going on for 3 years. So this started 3 years ago, right? And just to give some context on the University of East Anglia, they did an event called the Uni Unlocked, which is an event for year 10s to get a taste of what student life is all about by staying in student flats with other year 10s, participating in sports clubs and society tasting sessions, and just getting a general gist of what uni life is all about, right? Well, white year 10s aren't allowed to attend.
Sorry, did you say white year 10s?
Yeah.
Are not?
Yeah.
Why?
So this is it. They have no excuse, but their excuse always is, oh yeah, we do this to boost diversity uptake in a particular profession, right? But if you look into it, again, white kids, if you put everything in proportion, white kids are entering into university at a statistically lower rate than black kids, than Chinese kids. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense. That's the kind of university that we're dealing with there.
Yeah.
They've even got on the library, the UBA, they've got a link where you can submit books to have trigger warning slapped to them. Yeah. It's mad, isn't it?
I'm so glad that I didn't go to an actual uni.
I don't blame you. It's mad, and this stuff isn't always brought to the forelight, right? So we've been fighting this now for about. So it started 3 years ago. We only found out about it about 54 weeks ago now, and that's what. Well, no, it was longer than that. It was about 57 weeks ago we found out about it. We organised our first demonstration about 53 weeks ago, and we've been fighting consistently, nearly every single month, against men in female changing rooms. On the first demonstration, there was an Antifa member who managed to get through police lines, threw a water balloon at us. Some people speculated it was Phil or piss, but that was never actually verified. And there was a lot of stuff that kind of went on there. But 53 weeks later, we have won our campaign. And now I just want to clarify this. There was a statement put out before the Gender Supreme Court ruling. So when was this? About 2 months ago, I think. I went into the University of East Anglia with a few people, Students Against Tyranny, right? And we unrolled a banner. We went into the actual sports park. We unrolled the banner. We got up on a megaphone, and this was open day as well. So we were embarrassing the university in front of all these new parents with their new future students, right? And we were just telling them what was going on. And after that, then a statement was put out by the sports park saying that they have designated male and female changing rooms, right? So I only found out about this about 2-3 days after the Gender Supreme Court ruling. So what I did is I sent them an email and I said, hey, in light of the Gender Supreme Court ruling and in light of your previous statement, could you please clarify what you mean by this? Do you allow men into female changing rooms? I'm not talking about trans men or whatever. I'm talking about biological XY chromosomes, do they get to pick and choose their changing room? And they came back with a definitive statement that, no, that's not the case anymore. And then there was a part of the statement that read, I can't remember what it read exactly, but I was like, I'm not too sure on this line. This is quite ambiguous. Please, could you reword it? They thanked me and they removed it from their statement. So we won our campaign, right?
Yeah.
And it was a hard fight. It took 53 weeks. But, you know, these victories do happen. I mean, the left wing, Antifa, they outnumbered us every single time on these demonstrations. Apart from in Norwich, in the actual city centre when we did a protest up there, maybe once or twice. But most of the times they outnumbered us. It doesn't matter. Numbers don't matter. And to those who say protests don't work, you're kidding me, right? We've had, from 4 campaigns four campaigns I've been involved in, or Students Against Tyranny been involved in, we've won. Do you get what I mean? Whether you want to talk about Honor Oak, which is run by Turner Point UK, the Child Sweetie store, which I was telling you a minute ago, we actually, every store across the UK have removed the have removed the sex toys from the shelves.
Really?
You would not believe the stuff they're in there. I'll show you a video later. And what was it? And Boots as well with the Drag Queen Story Hour. Boots had drag queen kits for 5-year-olds and drag queen bingo. So there's been quite a few campaigns, and you don't need big numbers. You can win.
Yeah. Your body's immune system is under constant attack from flu, respiratory diseases and the common cold. And as we all know, vitamin D3 plays a vital role in maintaining a robust immune system. Now you can boost your immune system with Immune X365, our unique formulation that combines effective levels of vitamins D3, C and K2, as well as zinc and quercetin. This unique combination of nutrients in Immune X365 ensures maximum bioavailability of D3, thereby giving your immune system an optimum boost. Or try our new Immune X365 gummies, which are formulated specifically for children and young adults aged from 9 to 17 years old. Remember, all NutriHealth 365 orders come with free 2-day track delivery. Go to NutriHealth365.com to get yours now.
What do you think are the most prevalent issues at the moment, especially kind of like with our sort of generation?
I think ownership, definitely a big one there. I'm never going to own a house. Most likely, you know, someone who, unless you're rich in this day and age, you're never going to own a house, right? You're going to get trapped in the cycle of renting. And like there was a thing called the Spotify car thing. I'm not sure if you heard of this, have you?
No.
So the Spotify car thing was launched in, I think it was 2021. And it was where you could have, like on your dashboard of your car, you could switch between Spotify songs. Well, they've decided to discontinue it, but not just cease production of the product, right? You can no longer use it. So people who paid like £200 for this product, they can no longer use them because because Spotify doesn't want them to. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So you don't really own anything. And like we talk about this, in the digital age, ownership it doesn't exist. When you buy games over Steam, for example, you're leasing the rights to that game, right?
Yeah.
They can remove it at any time, yeah? So I think ownership, definitely a big problem there. Something else as well that I don't think gets enough attention is that universities are, and always have been, the centre place of communist dystopian destruction, right? Every single communist regime throughout history, whether we're talking about the Khmer Rouge, Mao's Cultural Revolution, Soviet Russia, whatever it is, they have always utilised the students. Every single time. And I mean, even Yuri Bezmenov, he was a KGB defector from Canada, I believe. He's a propaganda agent. And he claimed that the reason it takes 15 years to install a dictatorship is because this is the number of the years it takes to influence an entire generation of young people.
Yeah.
Right? So they come after your kids. They said it in 1984, but it's what's happening. This is an Orwellian society, right? They are coming after your children. They're coming after you through your children, right? So I think that's a big thing we need to fight as well. One of my biggest issues, and that's the thing I campaign against, is the communist indoctrination that is plaguing our university campuses, and it's rife with the communist indoctrination. My third biggest issue, for me personally, isn't just Islam, it's immigration. Immigration as a whole. I think, while skills immigration does definitely have its benefits in society, not at this current rate.
Yeah.
So while I agree, while I definitely say that illegal immigration needs to be stopped, absolutely, what I'm also saying is that just immigration as a whole needs to be halted until we get a grasp on the problem that is, on the problem, right? Because there are just too many people coming over at the moment. Even if you're going by this skilled immigration system, it's just not working. So those are my 3 biggest issues, yeah.
Just on the immigration point, just a quick question. Do you think we should leave the ECHR?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not just ECHR. It's the 1998 Human Rights Act as well. So Tony Blair, in 1998, he enacted the Human Rights Act, which enshrined the ECHR into our legal system. It is no longer enough to leave the ECHR. We've also got to repeal this law that came in 1998. And only then, once we've done both of those things, can we finally start getting a grasp on our immigration crisis.
Do you think that there are any politicians or upcoming parties or anything that you think would rise to that challenge?
You know, I don't like Nigel Farage. I mean, I'm going to say something controversial here. I haven't always got on with Rupert Lowe. I think he's definitely the best bet at the moment, but I just don't get on with him. Nick Tinconi, he's always been a good friend of mine. I think he's fantastic, but if I'm frankly speaking, I'm not sure whether they have any chance. It is still, even if reforms come and blowing out, the Tories and Labour out of the water, it is still very much a uni-party system.
Yeah.
People vote one or the other. If you're right-wing, you're going to vote for the same party. If you're left-wing, you're going to vote for the same party. Right? That's how it works. So, yeah, I'm very much... I'm very much a pessimist when it comes to politics these days. We got 5 years, Agenda 2030, right? Because we got 5 years to save this country, and I think we're further away than ever.
So May 10th was your most recent campaign at the UEA, and what backlash did you face from that?
So we get this every demo is hundreds of lefties out to counter protesters, desperate to keep men in female changing rooms because yay, we've had the thing is, like, my girlfriend is a child sexual abuse survivor, yeah. And she spoke about that in Manchester, and the lefties were throwing eggs and saying, shoot yourself like Adolf Hitler. They have no respect. They have no respect, right? I think even if we were we don't counter-protest off them. Even if the right wing were to do a counter-protest, I don't think, they would have more common decency than to act like that. And I think that's what separates us a lot, right? They are I find them disgusting, despicable in their behaviour, and they were no different on Saturday, where they were bringing up all the allegations from a vindictive ex-boyfriend aimed towards my girlfriend who runs these campaigns with me, and then some false allegations or twisting of the facts in relation to what I said about the Holocaust, which I'm not going to get too much into. But they claimed that I was a Holocaust denier, which isn't true. I never denied the Holocaust. I said it happened. Even in the video clip, even in the audio clip that they played, I said the Holocaust happened. But they always latch onto these things, right? That was the two main chants, was very vindictive lies.
Yeah.
And one of them has come from a very bad source who is part of a fascist party, Homeland, who, he was in bed with Patriotic Alternative. Yeah, so, I mean, something else as well, they did threaten to, batter us and curb stamp us and stuff like that at the demo. I did respond, which I shouldn't have done. They kind of got under my skin a little bit with that. But they got under my skin because of what they were saying about the Union Jack, shove the Union Jack up your ass. We expect these at protests now. Norwich Antifa, to be honest, aren't the most violent out there. Bristol Antifa are a lot worse. Manchester Antifa are definitely a lot worse. We've been attacked a few times in Manchester. We've got someone currently who's sitting in prison for threatening to stab Wes Against Tyranny member. And also calling him a house N-word, while also calling me a racist. So yeah, it's a kind of shit that happens at our demos. But you gotta walk through it with a smile on your face, right?
Well, I mean, even the ones that aren't violent, because obviously we were there covering it, and everyone was like divided by this fence because we tried to walk through and tried to ask a few questions. They were like, nope. So we had to climb over this fence, and then we were divided. So there wasn't much physical violence, but the things that they were saying. I mean, there was this one woman that was saying something along the lines of, like, keep your hands out of our kids' pants. You're the people that our girls should be scared of. And we're not the ones going around telling kids to cut things off and add things on. What did you think about some of their chants or some of the things they were saying? Well,
you're absolutely right there, because the UEA actually has a gender expression fund, right? So the gender expression fund is where university students who identify as the opposite sex can get money for certain things that are gender affirming, right? Or gender affirming. So if it's a woman who wants to be a bloke, they can get chest binders. It's encouraging self-harm. Yeah, it's encouraging self-harm, it's encouraging child mutilation, it's encouraging mental illness, yeah? But they're very hypocritical in their chant. Do us all a favour, shoot yourself like Adolf Hitler. Follow your leader, shoot yourself like Adolf Hitler. I think that's their chant, isn't it? Well, I came up with a chant a while ago. I did say it a few times at this demo, but I've been told many times by a lot of our team not to actually get it going at a demonstration. And that chant is, if so much trans pride, why so much suicide? Right? Because it's taking the piss out of something that is quite serious now. Is that there's a lot of suicide within the trans community. It's not because they don't get accepted. It's because they realise they've made a mistake 7 years after they've mutilated themselves irreversibly. Right, that's why the suicides happen. We're here to hold a demonstration. What does get on my nerves though, and you probably noticed it on the 10th of May, and it doesn't bother me about the YouTubers. You know, they got to get their content. It bothers me about the supporters who come down to stand with us. Right, is that a lot of the time they'll just go and see the left.
Yeah,
they'll go and stand across from the left. No, we're not there for the left. We're there to hold our demonstration. We won, and we won our campaign. It took 53 weeks. I want us to be remembered for the victory that we had.
Yeah.
And so, that's why I said we are suspending all further protests. We are suspending activity at the UEA Sports Park. And we will be back if we find out if it's going on again. And we will be pursuing legal action. And we will win because of the Gender Supreme Court ruling, right? So, it does get... I don't know if you noticed that at protest, but people, a lot of the time, only seem to come out for the left.
Well,
Antifa.
that, and they try and goad you into reacting because they know exactly what will happen once you react. So you just mentioned the Supreme Court ruling. Do you think that with that, this issue with men in women's spaces can finally be put to rest, or do you think that there's still a long way to go?
It's half and half. There's still a long way to go in the sense that because of the Supreme Court ruling, I think it's Lush's, they sell like bath bombs, stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
They are now encouraging... they're doing a lot of things to stand with the trans community, right? So there's a lot of companies that have come forward to do their virtue signalling, to play their part, and encourage this mentally unwell dystopian nightmare. But on a legal standpoint, we have won. There's nothing they can do anymore. They can try and overturn this ruling, but at the end of the day, we stand with truth on our side, with facts on our side, yeah? You cannot change your biological sex. Gender is a made-up term. You cannot change your biological sex, and men should not enter female changing rooms, right? So, when me and Sid, so this was on the Friday before the demo, so on the 9th, me and Sid went down to Norwich City and we started handing out leaflets, and we were talking to a lot of people, and usually we get a lot of aggro. Yeah. We always have someone posting about it on Reddit, ripping them up, throwing them, people getting violent. Nothing this time. So I don't know whether the Gender Supreme Court ruling has also changed the way people think now, or whether people are now not afraid to speak out about it. I don't know, but I do see this as the beginning of the end.
So how does it feel to have a community of students where they don't have to be ashamed of their opinions?
It feels great. This is what life's all about. I love having friends who disagree with me politically, right? I love it because if everyone had the same opinions, then life would be incredibly boring. But even amongst our own community, where we are very like-minded, we do have disagreements. And those disagreements are what make us, not cloned individuals. Yeah, we're all separate in our identity. So I think it's very important to have these little communities where we share this knowledge, where we communicate, we exchange skills, ideas. And, we built that up recently, haven't we? We've constant networking, right? I think it's incredibly important. And, I love what we've done with the student community. And, I'm looking forward to what the next 5 years hold.
So obviously, we spoke about immigration, we spoke about ownership and the financial state of the country at the moment. What do you think is the main threat to young people coming from immigration?
Well, immigration, so, it's very multifaceted, but what I've always seen is, you want to own a house? I say this to every young person, you want to own a house? You're not going to be able to because of immigration. Immigration is the main reason, right? We cannot build enough houses in this country to cope with the current demand of immigration. I spoke to an estate agent not too long ago, and I asked him, why are housing prices so expensive? And he did tell me it's because, the supply cannot meet the demand. And when the supply doesn't meet the demand, prices skyrocket, right? So that's what I see as the biggest issue coming from immigration, is that people aren't going to own their own homes.
Yeah.
And, when housing prices become 700 grand, what do? You go to the bank to get a loan, right? And then you become owned by the bank. You become owned by debt. We live in a debt-based system, right? So that's that's one of the biggest issues I see coming from immigration in relation to young people.
I think another thing that a lot of parents particularly are worried about is kind of there are new videos daily of people just swinging machetes around in broad daylight, and then you find out it's in Birmingham or it's somewhere like that. Do you think that our young people are at risk of getting like kind of sucked into that lifestyle?
Absolutely. I mean, this obviously this culture didn't come from Britain, right? We know where this culture came from because we imported it. Yeah, it didn't start in Britain. We imported this culture into our country. These young, impressionable kids are copying the culture that we've imported, right? We have literally destroyed our country through our own hand. Yeah, that's what's happened. So, yeah, it's very easy for young kids to get pulled into that.
I'd be interested to know what your take on this, considering our right to bear arms in this country.
So this is where it gets a little bit difficult, right? Because the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. That's what it states. I mean, the New Zealand constitution and the American constitution was based on the UK constitution, right? The only difference is that their constitutions were codified, ours are uncodified. It's spread amongst many different documents, whether that be the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights, etc. Yeah, we have a right to bear arms in this country. We do have that right to bear arms. And unfortunately, our guns were taken away from us. We no longer have that access to that. And I think guns, to me, are the main self-defense tool, right? Because with a knife, still a lot of physical contact comes into it, right? So if someone's trying to stab you, you've still got to be able to defend yourself and stab them back. And it takes a lot of physical force, right? If a man pulls out a knife on a woman, even if the woman has, pulls out enough to defend herself, the man very likely is going to be able to succeed, right? So to me, a gun brings out a level playing field, right? Everyone has a chance.
Yeah.
So in self-defense, I know the right to bear arms is it can mean anything, right? It can mean anything from a knife to a machete to whatever. But to me, the right to bear arms means a gun, yeah? Because a gun levels out the playing field. So I don't think that we should be allowing people to walk around with, massive zombie blades. Yeah, what I think people should be walking around with is pistols. Guns. I think that our right to bear arms shall not be infringed. That we should bring guns back into the UK.
So obviously, you said you're suspending future campaigns at the UEA. So what is coming up next for you guys?
So we haven't got a date for this yet. I think we're going to go up in July. Problem is that my PA system is completely broken now. GMP broke it, Greater Manchester Police. And then it just, since they pushed Nick Tanconi and his security into it, it's now kind of, it's just falling apart.
Yeah.
So I need to, I'm either going to set up a crowdfunder or I'm going to buy one myself. A new good PA system that actually lasts. But we want to go up to Liverpool University next. We haven't got a singular issue we want to protest about. What we want to do is we want to launch a movement, and by doing so, we're going to build momentum, right? So we are going to start it at Liverpool University. Unfortunately, you're going to have groups like Femboys Against Fascism out to protest us. See you up there, boys. So, yeah, we got a few fun things planned for that. But we're going up there because what we want is we want free speech protected on university campuses. That's what I want. Yeah, I want universities to become a marketplace of ideas. That's not to say that I think communism or socialism or those kind of societies should be banned from campus. That's me saying that I think that everything should be allowed.
Yeah.
Free speech should be encouraged. I'm a free speech absolutist. What we're going to start doing, we're going to move all over the country. I'm really excited to launch it. And, yeah. It's sad that the lefties are going to come out to counter protest just because students will be scared.
Yeah.
But, it's the reality we face where we cannot have a civilized discussion in this country without someone running over and calling you a fascist.
So where can people find you, keep up to date with social media, if they wanted to ever come along to a campaign or anything like that?
So if you're a young person, if you're a student, if you're a young person under the age of 25, join Students Against Tyranny for free at studentsagainsttyranny.com/join. If you want to give me a follow, I'm James Harvey 2503 on Twitter. We also do have a Students Against Tyranny Twitter account, but that didn't really get used much. We have Students Against Tyranny on Telegram, Instagram, and I would say YouTube, but we don't have the login for that anymore. So yeah, anyway, that's our followings. And please, if you are a young person, do get involved. We've got like a big group chat that's been set up at the moment. Please do get involved. Your country needs you. Don't be scared, yeah?
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully you'll come on again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
For more
more exclusive behind the scenes content, please be sure to subscribe to our Patreon. It really helps us cover the cost of any live streams, events, protests, or anything that we do. You'll also be seeing any behind the scenes footage and anything that we might be doing with Defiance Records.
Resistance GB's new series, 1,000 Words, has me, portrait artist Jake Fern, talking to some of the key figures in the movement. Half my brain concentrating on having a conversation, and the other half on making a painting. Do I succeed at either? You be the judge.